So the Prophet told him to recite one chapter every night so that he would finish the whole Quran every month. So he said, no, I want more. So the Prophet told him, do that in 20 nights. He said, I want more. He told him, do that in 10. He said, no, I can do more. I want more. So the Prophet told him, do it in 7 days. He said, no, I can do more. The Prophet told him, do that in 3 nights, and you will not comprehend anything if you do it in less. So the maximum you can read is 10 chapters, and this is the recommendation of the Prophet ﷺ. So scholars say the minimal amount that is highly recommended for you to recite would be 1 chapter per night.
1 chapter per night.
Yeah, this is the minimal preferred and recommended. But if someone does not do that, he's not sinful, yet he has abandoned a lot of good things that he's missing a lot of good deeds by not doing this.
Are there certain surahs that you should read every day, for example? Or
okay, there are certain surahs, well actually, so that we would not mix chapters with surahs. There are certain surahs that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to recite. For example, Surat Al-Mulk, Tabarak alladhi biyadihi al-mulk. It's a surah comprised of 30 verses, and this surah prevents whoever recites it before going to bed from the punishment of the grave. So it's a great reward. There are verses of the Quran, and the most important and the best verse of the Quran is Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne. And this verse, if you we're told to recite it at the end of every prayer. So when after you concluded your 5 daily prayers, it's one of the verses that you should read. And the bounty behind that, the Prophet says that whoever preserves, whoever maintains reciting the verse of Al-Kursi, nothing will prevent him from entering paradise except death, which means the minute he dies, he's immediately admitted to paradise. There are also the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. The Prophet told us that if a person recites this before he goes to bed, then he will be protected from Satan, and Satan would not be able to harm him. There are the last 3 surahs of the Quran. Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Surah Al-Falaq, Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq. Surah Al-Nas, Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. We recite this also at the end of every prayer and 3 times before we go to bed each. And so there are so many things.
that we can do. Okay, we've got a short break now, and then we'll continue.
I actually think that it's a very personal book. I think that it's a book that you can understand as an individual in a direct relationship with Allah or God. And in that sense, no, I don't think that you need an intercessor or someone that sort of explains things to you. I think it's a book that, because it is so highly personal and because it is very dependent upon the way that you foresee your relationship with Allah or with God, I think that that's the most important factor, and it's not about another human being that can tell you how to think with the Quran.
I mean, to a Muslim, Quran is like a center, it's like something that is central in your life. And like Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that one should always read the Quran, recite the Quran, and he even complained to Allah that, oh Allah, my ummah has left the Quran. So like, without relating to Quran, you're almost lacking as a Muslim. Like, when you recite the Quran in your prayers, one should always ponder upon what he's reciting, not just reciting to just fulfill the prayers and keep going on with the pace of life.
The Quran is Islam, you know. If you don't read the Quran, then you don't know what is Islam about, you know. Reading Quran is the most important step in judging Islam, you know. The best way in da'wah is to make people go to the Quran and try to read the Quran, even the English meanings. Once you did this, I think this is a major step that you are doing to a person, and a favor and a duty on the Muslim is to make people, as Muslims, we are calling to the Quran. So Quran is Islam for me.
I think that those rules come down to loving your neighbor as yourself, trying to serve humanity, and in so doing serving God or Allah. These rules are all important. I think that they're universal, and that the Quran speaks to those rules, as does other religious manuscripts and texts and traditions that we have.
Well, Quran, like I would say that very briefly is the final message of God to humanity through the final prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Quran is not just a book of divine revelation. It's also, it talks about like a lot of things and encompasses a way of life. So it's not just specifically a book of law, but it also talks about previous nations and trying to ponder upon ideals and stories and so on. It's also it's basically like a way of life for Muslims.
Sheikh Hasim, can one, and especially youth, use the Holy Quran to answer certain questions about things relating to their daily life, for example, like divorce, for example, like relationships with people and things like that?
We have to realize that the Quran contains answers without any count to questions that may arise in the future, because Allah Azza wa Jal has revealed this Quran to be suitable till the day of judgment, and nothing will be revealed after it. No messenger would be sent after the Prophet ﷺ, who is the seal of the prophethood. This means that there are answers to your questions, but unfortunately people never refer to the Quran for solutions. They, and this is, I think you all agree with me and you may comment on that, they use the Quran in ways different to what Allah Azza wa Jal has revealed it for. For example, people nowadays abuse the Quran by putting certain verses and hanging them on the walls for decoration, not for recitation. And this is a form of abusing the Quran. One would say, no, I'm doing this so that I can read it. I tell you, I've seen so many houses with verses of the Quran on the walls. When I ask the people owning that house, without looking, what's on that portrait? He says, a verse of the Quran. Which one? I said, I don't know. Let me look. Because they got used to it, they forgot what it was about. And they pay so much money as a decoration, not as something to be recited and learned from. And this is one way of abusing the Quran.
Okay, Mahmoud?
But Sheikh, don't you find that it's better to have a portrait of Quranic verse on the wall than to have a picture, an image of horse, a landscape, natural scene on the wall?